First announcement is that I'm an emotional old man, and I cry a lot when I preach. And I gotta tell you guys, don't be embarrassed for me. Save your embarrassment for yourself. Because I'm plenty embarrassed for myself. You don't have to help me be embarrassed. When I got saved, here I go. When I got saved, I cried for 3 days, almost nonstop. My waking hours, my wife would hold me, comfort me. I realized in a minute my sin and how bad I was and how amazing it was that God would save me. And I know why he saved you, but you don't know me. I look good on the outside, but oh my goodness. And God saved me. And I haven't stopped crying since. And I'm not, I said embarrassed, but I'm really not ashamed of it. It's a work that God did in my heart. And he lets me know when I speak of family, when I speak of friends, when I speak of God's love for his people, it's an emotional thing for me. And it's no time for me to be manly. In the first place, I'm not manly at all. When it comes to manly stuff, I'm kind of a fake. But God has blessed. I want you guys to appreciate your pastor, so I have something I want to read to you. I want you to appreciate all the pastors. I got something I want to read to you. Now, if you know where this came from, don't blurt it out. I'll give you a chance at the end. I'll ask you, is there anybody here that knows? I'm breathing down on my mic here. It's my wife's phone, so I don't know how to run it. I lost it. Dear, would you come here and help me? You guys will get a chance to see my lovely wife. This is the power right here. God uses her more than he even wants to use me. So your pastor, I'm going to move this down a little, Lonnie, and if you need me to move it back up, tell me. There are many glamorous occupations people pursue. Movie star, doctor, satire writer, but perhaps the most prestigious and sought-after line of work is that of being a pastor. Very prestigious. Though many want such a job, few are qualified. Do you meet the requirements? These people have compiled the qualification. You must be perfect and never make a mistake. Everyone knows pastors never do anything wrong. You must be thin enough to not be a glutton, but fat enough to not be hot. You don't want to be morbidly obese, but you don't want to distract anyone from your handsomeness or by your handsomeness. You must always jump out of the nearest window if ever a woman enters a room that you're in alone. You must be willing to work weekends, weekdays, nights, mornings, afternoons, and holidays. Marriage counseling experience, theological knowledge, and carpentry skills are also preferred. You must be willing to drive a 20-year-old vehicle and never flash your wealth. You must enjoy attending 12 funerals per week and beware that you'll probably be expected to say something at all of them. You must possess a willingness to suffer all things for the sake of the gospel, including weekly conversations with Steve. Now, you can plug in whatever name you want. If you're here today and you don't know what name would be plugged in, it's probably you. And you must read the Bible at least once. If you know anybody that qualifies, give your pastor a hand. Give your pastor a hand. I appreciate that you didn't make me add or else onto the end of that sentence. I am honored to be here. It's a high calling. It really is a high calling. And I'd like to pray right now and ask God's blessing on it. Father, you see who's here. I see who's here. And most of these people could be in this pulpit before me. And God, I ask that you would bless them, with a certain attentiveness to what you're saying, not what I'm saying, Lord, but what you're saying. And that each heart would receive it in a different way, however you guide it. I ask you, Lord, that you would put a final filter on everything I say, and that it would be a blessing, not a curse, not a distraction. But Lord, that everything I say will aim this people toward you. I'm going to make an announcement that has never been made before in church. You guys are lucky to be here. This is a blessing for you guys to be here because you've never heard this announcement before, and you'll never hear it again. If somewhere during this sermon I tell you we're at intermission, that means that I have to go to the bathroom because I'm an old man and I have certain problems. And I didn't ask him the permission to do that because I thought he might turn me down and I might have to wet my pants. So if I leave, you guys just talk. You can even talk about the sermon so far. You can say, whatever you want to say. Just have intermission. Go get some peanuts or something. Hallelujah. I want to talk, Terry and Renee have heard this message, at least part of it before, out in Wisconsin. It's been on my heart for a while, and it's so encouraging to me. It's so uplifting to me. And I'll get to the sermon. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. John 1:3. I'll get there in a minute. John 1:3. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. Nothing. Title of my sermon today, if you care, is Never Give Up on Creation. Never give up to the world. Never give up in your own mind. Never let your mind wander away from the creation. The creation is the centerpiece of the Bible. It's a centerpiece of God's message to us. And he preaches to us constantly through the creation. Hallelujah. And now let's turn to Acts 17. And I know that Pastor has preached to you guys about creation a dozen times. And the reason I know that is not because I keep track of what is preached here, but because I know Pastor. And the thing about him is that he preaches the whole Word. He preaches all the Word. And that's an amazing thing. There's not many left. There's not many left. Appreciate him while you got him. He can't have but another 25, 30 years left. I'm an optimist. Acts 17 and verse 24. God, who made the whole world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands. Notice it says he made the whole world and everything in it, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything. He doesn't need anything from us. But I'm here to tell you today that we're the only thing he gets out of the deal. He made this. He keeps it going. If you're sitting in that pew today and you take another breath, that's His air you're sucking. That's His air. And if you're still alive at the end of that breath, it's His time you're on. It's not your time. Well, I guess it was just my time to go, and I'm not asking to change your language. Well, I guess it was His time to go. No, it was God's time. All of it is God's. It's all His. But here it says that it's all Him. It's all His. But the verse that got me has got nothing to do with any of this stuff. It just has to do with creation. I'm just talking about creation right now. Was in Job 26:8. And we can turn there. I believe it was Job 26:8. I got to make a confession right now. I don't even read the Bible anymore. I read my phone. There it is, just right where they've been keeping it all these years. (26:8). This is the one that turned this thing around for me, that changed my thinking on it, made me start. I'm a mathematical person. When I hear something on TV, I always run the math through my brain. Is that possible? Could that be? Because, by the way, how many people know that they lie to you all the time? They just throw things out there and they just assume that 75, 80, 90% of the people are going to believe it. I'll give you an example of how my brain works, and don't get in there too far because you don't want to live inside of this brain. But I heard a story on TV one night that 1,200 babies in Minnesota, 1,200 infants die every year due to faulty cribs. And immediately you say, oh, that's tragic. That's how bad can it be? But then you get to thinking about it. You say, that's 3 or 4 a day. If 3 or 4 infants a day were dying of anything, we'd know about that. You know, it wouldn't be in some story trying to sell new cribs. They're lying to me. I know they're lying. I can't prove it. I don't know the figures or anything like that. But then I look them up and just what's available to us, and that was nationwide. But they reported it like it was the truth. It's still a tragedy, don't misunderstand me. But everything goes through my mind mathematically. And so this is what happened to me. 26:8. He binds up the water in His thick clouds, yet the clouds are not broken. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing that turned my brain around. And I started thinking about that. He binds up the water and the clouds, and it says, yet they do not break. Yet they don't break. Well, what does that even mean, or how can that even be? Why is that even significant? You know, I was thinking about it because it was one of those days when I read that, and looked like it was going to rain, and all that business. And so I started doing math on it, just simple math. Everybody's got a calculator on their phone and all that. Everybody can ask Google things and so on, so forth. How many square feet are in an acre? How many, like that? How many acres in a square mile? And just do the math on it. If you live in a house that's on an acre of land and it rains 1 inch, I talked to you a little bit about this in your driveway. It rains 1 inch on your 1 acre of land. You got 27,154 gallons of water. 27,154 gallons on your little 1 acre. 1 acre is like none. Now, if you want, you can take that times 8, because there's 8.3 pounds of water in every gallon. And you say, how many stinking gallons of or pounds of water is that? And it's all up in the cloud, and it don't break. And that's just for your 1 acre. If you live in West St. Paul is about 3,000 acres. It's a small city, quite small, even compared to the small cities around it. South St. Paul is 6,000 acres. Inver Grove Heights is 19,000 acres. I'm just trying to give you a proportion on it. West St. Paul, if you get an inch of water, if you live in West St. Paul and you say, oh, we got a beautiful rain gauge. Honey, check the rain gauge. That's what it sounds like at my house. Check the rain gauge, honey. Oh, we got an inch. We got a full inch. Oh, what a nice rain. 1 inch of rain in West St. Paul is 86,892,000 gallons of water. How many tanker trucks would it take to water West St. Paul? We don't have enough tanker trucks. That 1 acre, like they have down there at Kimchester Cathedral, I think they have maybe about an acre. That thing takes 9 tanker trucks, like they pull up to Holiday with to empty gasoline out of those big tankers. We've all seen them. It takes 9 of them just to give them an inch of water. It's an amazing thing. God delivers it all. He's more dependable than Uber. He does it all for free. We never think about it. There's probably not a person in the building. We're all Christians here, or most of us are Christians. There's probably not a person in the world that's prayed for rain. Well, my wife and I prayed for rain for Jeff Baker. They had a drought down there. And it rained, by the way, and he said it hasn't stopped raining since. Yeah, that happened. He says stuff is green that he never knew was green. He never knew it was supposed to be green. But he says, I'm never going to ask God to have it stop raining again. I realized what a blessing rain was. God delivers. That's part of the creation. That's his plan. But as they say on those TV commercials, wait, there's more. There's more to this. He delivers that rain. He delivers 27,154 gallons to your 1 acre lot. And he says, how's that rain going? You say, it's going great, Lord. He says, I got something else for you. I'm going to send some nitrogen. Every time it rains, a significant rain, there's nitrogen that comes down with it. It's from the lightning, and scientists can explain it, but I can't. 20% of all the nitrogen that goes into the earth, 20% of it comes from the rain from the lightning. Once again, a little bit of perspective. There's not a fertilizer company in the world, not the biggest, Archer Daniels, Midland, all of those huge outfitters. There's not one in the world that produces 20% of the nitrogen. The highest one there is in the bunch is slightly over 13%. God delivers more nitrogen for free than they can deliver for all the money in the world. It's just amazing. This stuff is just amazing. Let me look again. That 86,892,800 gallons of water that falls in West St. Paul with just 1 inch is all free. It's all amazingly free. $695 million if it rains an inch in West St. Paul. It's just amazing. And all that water that we get is completely recyclable. This is supposed to be a scientific fact, but don't believe it because it's a scientific fact, but I do believe it. There's been no new water created since the beginning of time. We've used the same water over and over again. The water that Brother Kim drank while he was up here singing and playing probably went through the kidneys of a rhinoceros in Africa at some time. All the water that we have is recyclable and totally interchangeable, completely. The Mississippi, where is that? It drops, I can't see it, I know what it is. It drops about 600 million gallons of water into the Gulf of Mexico. No, I'm sorry. That's 600,000 gallons of water into the Gulf of Mexico per second. Per second. Yet the Gulf of Mexico never becomes fresh water. It never becomes fresh water. And the Mississippi gets all its water from evaporated water out of the salt water that comes back over the land and drops its water. It's the most amazing thing that it's totally interchangeable. We can't drink that salt water. All of Israel and the countries, Jordan and countries around it, they now live on desalinated water. They just do what the Lord does for free. They build these big, powerful plants and so on to do that, and it's an amazing process, but the Lord does it for free. And he had this plan from the beginning. It isn't like we had to help him with it or anything like that. It's a part of his system. He says, where were you? That's what it says in the Psalms and the Proverbs. It says, where were you when I built this system? Where were you? You think you know this, you think you know that. Where were you when I built this system? And of course, we were a twinkle in our Father's eye. It's amazing. All the water is recyclable. Yeah, here it is, 600,000. I was right on that. 600,000, but once again, I want perspective on this. The Mississippi is the 15th largest river dumping into the oceans. In other words, the Amazon dumps 11 times as much as the Mississippi. But that ocean never becomes fresh water. It never does. And the Amazon never becomes empty. It's all interchangeable. It's just amazing to me. If it's not amazing to you, that's okay with me. I wanted to address something that Sveta said earlier, teasing her dad, which, by the way, if you had spanked her more when she was little, you wouldn't have to put up with that now. You know? I'm just saying. I'm up here today, and I have an advantage over Brother Kim. He can out-preach me. I wish you could see him 40 years ago. I mean, I'm sure he's great now. He's a great pastor. But I wish you could see him 40 years ago. He would scare you into salvation. You wouldn't know if you should get up and leave or you should get up and go to the altar. But anyway, I have an advantage on him. I have an advantage, and this advantage he can't take away. And I call it the Uncle Chuck advantage. My younger brother's name is Chuck, and he's a good guy. He's a real good guy. And he would visit, and he was kind of that uncle for my kids that he was always the one that brought the special candy and the special this and bring them gifts and all that kind of thing, and they loved it. And when they started driving, he'd take them out driving. You got a 15-year-old, he'd take them out driving in his car. And it was very nice. It was a very pleasant thing, And I used to teach my kids about defensive driving. And I would constantly tell him, no, son, you're looking at the curb. You got to be looking out in front of you. You got to look out. You got to have a plan. You got to know what that car in front of you is doing. You got to know even what sometimes two cars in front of you are doing. And you got to have a plan. And it didn't seem to be getting in there, you know. And I don't want to say which one was one of the worst, because I don't want my grandson Micah telling his dad what I said. So I'm not gonna say it. But one day he came back. He went with Uncle Chuck, and it was one of their first forays out. And he says, Dad, he says, Uncle Chuck is an awesome driver. You know, he's you know. And I thought, I've ridden with Uncle Chuck. I don't see anything there, you know. And he says, you know what he says? He says, if you look out farther and you watch, you gotta be careful that you're not just looking at the curb, and you gotta look out there farther and plan your deal. I got the Uncle Chuck advantage here. I can say the same thing that Pastor Kim said 2 weeks ago, and they say, boy, that Bobby's a genius. That was really great, you know, about the creation and all that. And Kim is going, he doesn't get any farther in this, but he says, what the? The creation is amazing. My goofy stories aren't much, but the creation is amazing. Where were you when I built that system? He made the trees so they breathe carbon dioxide, and he made us so we breathe oxygen, and we can just change parts. It's like sitting down at the dinner table with my daughter Naomi, and she likes the center white part of the bread, and I like the crust, so she tears the crust off her bread and gives it to me, and we fellowship well. We fellowship well. That's what us and the trees and the grass are doing. Photosynthesis. Say that 12 times. Never give up on creation. Never give up on creation. It's tempting to say, okay, we can just agree to disagree. If that's what you believe, that's okay. But you got to know Jesus. No, it's a centerpiece of salvation. It's a centerpiece. Either God made all this or he didn't. And that's important. Never give up. Another thing that's amazing about that whole rain thing, it says in the scriptures, I'm not going to turn there, but it says that he drops the water wherever he wants. We've seen it 1,000 times if you're as old as I am. Oh, it looks like it's going to rain. We got some pretty good clouds coming in. They blow over and drop it in Wisconsin. We don't even think anything of it. We don't think God did that. Those are his clouds. That's his water. And he decides who he's going to bless with it. And rain is always a blessing. That's what Jeff Baker taught me. Does Jeff preach here when he comes to town? Yeah, that's what Jeff Baker taught me, that idea, and I was kind of already there. The idea that rain is always a blessing. You say, well, it wasn't a blessing for those farmers in Le Sueur. I saw pictures on the news of the flood. But overall, rain is always a blessing, because all those farmers around that guy are saying, yes, they're on a little bit higher ground. And somebody, it might have not looked like a blessing to them, but rain is always a blessing. When that Mississippi River is full, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. God's clouds don't have to, drop water any place. They'll drop water where God says. Don't stake your life on experts. Do not stake your life on experts. And especially if somebody on that screen is saying, many experts believe, or some experts believe, or we have an expert that believes. They're not saying it's so. If you challenge them, they'll say, well, we didn't say that. We said they believe. Oh, so you lied to us, but you qualified your lie. If you want to talk about experts, think about what happened during the COVID. All the stuff that those experts told us. And now it's literally all been proven wrong. But somehow those people remain expert. They remain making a living being experts. How about weather people? How about the weatherman? I got no fight with Ian Leonard or Dave Dahl or whoever you watch. I have no fight with them, but they only have to be right half of the time. I can do that. Just call me up, I'll tell you. Yeah, it looks like rain. I'm an old farmer, it looks to me like rain. And there's times I tell my wife, poor thing, she's got to listen to this all the time, me mansplaining something. They say it's going to rain in 2 hours. There's no chance it's going to rain in 2 hours. I'm a farmer, I know that. I was raised a farmer. Raised a farmer, made my living as a fireman. Experts. Be careful of experts. Now the weather has become the news. It's become the news. Notice that. Pay attention. Something that's a relatively normal event. We haven't seen anything like this since 2010. Well, then what you're saying is that happened before in 2010. That's all that is. But they try and make it sound kind of disastrous because it's always the beloved climate change in there. They love their climate change. And I'm not saying that the climate's not changing. I don't know. But they don't either. That's all I'm saying. I don't know, but they don't know either. As the world gets crazier and crazier, we got to learn to stand up for the truth. And we got to be willing to speak the truth. And we can't be the cowering church any longer. We just can't afford that. We gotta get stronger, and we gotta get focused on the truth. We gotta ask every time we hear things, is that the truth? Is that the truth? Because it's hard to get the truth these days. It's really hard to get the truth. Experts, so-called. Psalm 116 says that all men are liars. Sorry. All men. That includes Terry. I'll just stop there. Let you guys think about that. All men are liars. If you can show me a man that's never lied, you can't. That's the truth. You can't. Psalm 116, all men are liars. And man remains defiant against the creation. He remains defiant. He can't submit to what God has set in place. Death Valley gets up to 135 degrees. And every once in a while, you find some researcher, an expert, dead and dried up, whizzing in Death Valley. And the claim is that he was out there researching the effects of extreme heat on the human body. Well, if he had asked me, I would have told him it killed the last 100 people. I'm just saying. But they don't get it. They think they still have to study that. They're defiant against the creation. Mount Everest has 200 frozen bodies up on Mount Everest. But every year we hear about a group going up there and 2 or 3 of them dying. And I've come to a point where I refuse to be surprised anymore. I'm not wishing death on those people, don't get me wrong. But I refuse to be surprised that you went someplace where people can't live and then you died. That's a bridge too far for me. The creation, it's God creation. That thing was named Death Valley for a reason. And you could have asked Micah's little brother Bubby, Bubby is my name for him. His name is Isaiah. You could ask that little guy, what's going to happen if you go out where it's too hot? He said, yeah, you probably die, Grandpa. It's all very simple, but we defy. We worship creation, but we refuse to worship the Creator. And we do that all the time. Listen to these ecologists. They just worship the snail darter or whatever it is. By the way, the snail darter, if I mention the snail darter, it dates me. That was a controversy from the 90s or something. Our experts have a bad record. The weathermen and the political experts, and all men are liars. And I already mentioned the COVID. The COVID was a devastating thing that most of it didn't have to be. I'm going to really go out on a limb here, Kim. This is an unauthorized statement in this church. But Honduras started using ivermectin. They started using ivermectin, which was just pilloried here in the United States. But somewhere halfway through this thing, could you guess at that, Micah, halfway through or something like that, they started using ivermectin. And their death rate went down to 17% of what our death rate was. They use it, they pass it out in packets. We got some of them when we were there and all that kind of thing. It was what they called a Z-Pack. It had ivermectin and a couple other things in there. And it was amazingly effective. This little, puny little country could put their politics aside and end up saving who knows how many lives. Imagine if we could have dropped our death rate down to 17% where Honduras was. Where did they get their ivermectin? From us. We sold it to them. We had ivermectin. But because some talking head on some expert said it wasn't good, we didn't use it. Never believe the experts. Never stake your life on them. Fact check them, all that kind of thing. I suppose there's experts, that you wanna listen to some. Those weathermen that tell you that it's the nastiest thing that ever happened out there, us Minnesotans that get those blizzard warnings and so on. And you're in a bad way. Your mom is in the garage, locked out of her house up in Blaine, and you say, "Well, I gotta go. I gotta take care of Mom. She's 75 years old. She's as old as Bob, for Pete's sake." And you get out on the road. You don't want to. You take extra clothing and you do this. And you go out and you say, "Yeah, it's a little windy out here. That's about it. There's not much going on." And they do that so many times that they end up costing lives. You say, "Well, it pays to be careful, Bob. It pays to be careful." Yeah, but when you cry wolf every single time, then when there's a wolf, nobody listens. Nobody listens. I'm getting a little long here. I better get going. Doctors' predictions of death. I've been through this one. My wife's dad died on us 3 times. That old man had more lives than a black cat. In one case, and what I'm saying about those doctors, don't get me wrong. They do a lot of good and all that, but they don't know it's not their decision. It's the Creator's decision. He knit us together in our mother's womb, and He knows the day of our death. Bob, don't put so much mayonnaise on your sandwich. You're going to die. It's going to kill you. No amount of mayonnaise on your sandwich is going to kill you. You ask Micah, it's good. If you watch Micah, you'll know. I don't even like mayonnaise. Butter. Butter. That's what you want, is butter. But her dad lay on his deathbed, and the doctor came and told us to prepare her mother. He's an old man already. And they're just the sweetest people. If you see the father, you see the son, you see the mother, you see the daughter. She's her parents' daughter. If you like my wife, you would have liked her parents. And if you don't like my wife, you're crazy. But he's on his deathbed, and the doctor said, you got to talk to your mom, and you got to prepare her. He's probably not going to make it through the night. We got on our knees and we prayed. We went to that stupid little waiting room that they have, and we went there and we prayed, and we asked God for a miracle. Next morning, the doctor walked in. He says, I think we got a miracle here. We didn't ask him about a miracle. He told us about a miracle. Grandpa was ready to talk to us. He couldn't. He had a tube in his throat, but he was active. He was good to go. 2 weeks later, he's out walking his 2-mile path every day, and this was in the wintertime. Doctors don't know. Then just a couple stories that I love to tell. My poor wife has heard these so many times. But I love to tell these stories. One time he was laying on his deathbed. He was supposed to die that time too. And he woke up, and the Twins game was on the TV. No sound was on because somebody shut it off a long time ago, but the Twins game was on TV. He looked up at the TV and he said, this team can't hit a lick. He's on his deathbed. This team can't hit a lick. He still knew about the Twins. And so on and so forth. They don't know, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying I do know. I'm not saying that they're evil. I'm just saying that they don't know. There are experts. Experts haven't figured out how hummingbirds make it across the Gulf of Mexico. If you press them, they'll start with a many believe. That's where the answer starts out, many believe, because there's not enough energy in that tiny little 3/4 of an ounce body to drive them across the Gulf of Mexico. They don't know. And then the hummingbirds say, because hummingbirds can talk. I've seen them in cartoons. I don't think they use their real voice, though. I don't think that's I don't know. The hummingbirds say, that's not the best part of it. The best part of it is we're the only birds that they ever gave reverse to. We can back up. And scientists pretty much openly admit they can't figure that out. That doesn't work with evolution. And I don't know why they decided that was what they couldn't figure out, but I'm just using some examples here. I want to be fair. All of God's promises are in the creation. Hallelujah. Those promises that God gave to you about your family being saved, they're embodied, they're pictured in the creation. All the promises that God gave me about my grandson, they're in the creation. God knew him before he spoke his first word, and he still knows him. And the reason I'm saying this is because I don't want him to get out of line. I want him to get scared and know that God's watching him. Mike is a good boy. I have one more little thing. I didn't know if I was going to do this, but I want to show you this. Where was I? Let's get back to Acts 17, because it's all together there. Acts 17. I'm going to start at verse 25. We already read that. Let's just start at 24 where we started out. God, who made the world and everything in it, since he is the Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since He gives to all life, breath, and all things. And he has made from one blood every nation of men that dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwelling. Another complete sermon. Kim Harrington could do a 6-month series on that verse right there. It's just amazing. And once again, it's something I started. I'm not going to do another whole sermon, but it's all part of that other thought. If I said to you right now, I got a friend that lives next door to me, and he's really a sweet guy. He's an African guy. He immigrated here from Kenya. Everybody in this room that can hear my voice right now would know what he looked like. You would all know what he looked like. He's an African guy. He's a black guy. He looks a certain way and all that. Or if I said, the guy that lives next door to Kim Harrington, he's an interesting guy because he works at the University of Minnesota. He's an Eskimo guy. Everybody know what he looked like. Everybody would know what he looked like. Everybody would know where he came from. He's a Chinese guy. He's an Indian guy. Fill in the blank. All these billions and billions of years of evolution, we haven't all mixed together. Isn't that amazing? That we're still in our place after all these billions of years of evolution. It's baloney. It's baloney with a capital B. It's B as in B and S as in S. That last little thing I gave you there, that's for free. I'm not going to charge for that. I get a pretty good speaking fee when I go out like this. And today, I'm sorry, there's not going to be any autographs. My agent said I don't have time. But isn't that amazing that we know all of those people? Yeah, my cousin, he married a Saudi girl. We know more or less what that girl will look like. And I understand that we've immigrated, we've done this and we've done that, but God appointed the pre-appointed boundaries for us. He put us where we're at, not us. We don't have to be ashamed to be an American. We don't have to be overly proud of it. It's God, all God's doing. We're blessed. We're so blessed in this country. God's promises are in the creation. Let's just remember that. Never give up on the creation. It's such a simple idea. I'm a simple man. But never give up on the creation.